A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 47.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Thank you. That was Theodore Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt, one of the coolest presidents ever. I'm Tom Stewart.
Was it Theodore or was it Franklin Roosevelt?
Was it Franklin?
It was Franklin.
Oh, Franklin. I'm sorry. That's right. So the less cooler of the Roosevelts. I'm Tom Stewart. I'm joined with my lifelong friend John Curren, who's calling me down to the carpet here and pointing out my obvious mistake. But regardless, that's what the show is today. It's about fear and how it applies to our lives and, hurts us or helps us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I love when we call each other out because we come out here, we put ourselves out here, and that is a risk, and we could be fearful and we could be quiet and we could just, not do this, but we don't grow if we don't do that, and fear, everybody has it. There's nothing wrong with being fearful. There's nothing wrong with feeling scared. Everyone goes through that in their life, and fear is a part of life. It's an unpleasant emotion based on a belief that someone or something is dangerous and it's likely to cause you pain, or it's some type of threat. And fear is really, it's in your head. It's not real. Danger is real. If there's a big black bear in front of you, that's dangerous. You can get killed, you can get hurt. But fear is just a belief, and most of the time it's in your head, and it does keep you alive because you either run or you fight.
You know who doesn't have fear?
Who?
Matt Murdock. And I know you have no idea who I'm talking about. It's Daredevil, the man without fear. Okay,
yes. Now it comes back.
But now, he was a comic book character, but now you can watch him on Netflix. So now you got to be up to speed.
I am. I've watched the first season.
Oh, well, all right. Then you're up to school.
I was just drawing a blank. I'm terrible with names. So everyone has fear. It keeps us alive, and not feeling fear could leave us unprotected from legitimate threats. So, I guess the real question is, how do you know what's dangerous or a threat and what is not? And I think the answer depends on what you're scared of.
Absolutely. We did a little bit of research. I know you did your research. I've done my research. And I've come across, there's basically 5 different types of fear, and it kind of goes into a pyramid. Can I talk about them real quick?
Sure. The feararchy.
Yeah, I didn't want to steal your thunder if that was your thing, but basically it's extinction, the fear of annihilation or ceasing to exist, or death. That's a pretty good reason to fear.
Yeah, that's the base. That's the base of it all.
Yep.
Base of the pyramid.
Mutilation, maybe the loss of a body part. That's kind of a scary thing, I guess. Or maybe
it's true. I mean, you could fear loss of a body part, or you could fear the invasion of boundaries, as well as a loss of a body part. Think about it. If there's a bee flying around you, that's an invasion of your boundaries. You could be fearful that you're going to get stung by that bee. That would fall under the mutilation, because if you get stung by a bee, your face is going to blow up like a balloon. That happened to me a few times.
You're allergic to them?
I don't like bees. Huh?
Are you allergic to bees?
I think I am now. I mean, I've been stung so many times. I had this job in college. I was a groundskeeper at an apartment building in college for I don't know, a month or so, and I went underneath the stairway to pick up an old newspaper, and underneath it were these yellow jackets. Which, if you're familiar with yellow jackets, they burrow down into the ground, and they're really tiny, but they're mean.
They're nasty.
They're really nasty, and two of them stung my face, one up by my eyebrow and one like on my cheek, and my whole side of my face just swole up like a balloon. It was
I have a fear of yelling into tubes or pipes because when I was a kid I yelled into my swing set, and as soon as I did, a wasp came out and stung me in the chin. It was horrible.
I remember that.
The next one is loss of autonomy. Basically, autonomy. If you want to talk about it, go ahead.
Loss of autonomy is, a loss of personal control, really. Autonomy is being able to do things by yourself. And, like my dad.
Like porn?
Porn?
That you should do by yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. It's always porn with you, Tom. It always goes back. With ALS, ALS is a degenerative disease that slowly but surely severs all of the neurological connections between your brain and the rest of your body. So by the end of that, a lot of people who have ALS, all they can do is they can't move their body anymore. They can basically just move their eyes around. They're on a ventilator system. They can't control their breathing. They can't control movement. It's a hell of a way to go, but that would be, a total loss of autonomy. I mean, you're not able to even move.
No, I cannot imagine that. And that's a horrible fate. I know your father suffered there.
Yeah, he had a different type, which started in his throat, and he lost his voice, and he lost the ability to swallow. So imagine, and I remember him telling me this. He said, imagine not being able to even drink water, or enjoy any type of food, all the wonderful food this world offers. He said it was just, you can smell it, you can see it, you could touch it, but that if you try to eat it, it'd be like, he had just no control to swallow. So he said it was pure hell.
I can imagine. Have you ever had this experience when you're sleeping and you get woken up, like jolted, and they call it sleep paralysis, being paralyzed when you're sleeping?
Yes. It's scary.
When I had this, when I was 16, I was over at my girlfriend's house, and I had slept over, but she was supposed to be sleeping in her room, and I was sleeping out on the couch. Well, she had come out in the middle of the night and come out to join me on the couch, but she was supposed to go back to her room in the morning before her mom woke up. And the phone rang, right? And what happened is my body woke up, but I couldn't do anything. I felt like my whole body was asleep. And I was afraid that her mom was going to get up to come answer the phone and see us laying there on the couch, and that would be it. Eventually I went back to sleep, unless it was a bad dream, but it seemed very real, and it was like the most horrible feeling. And I think I've had it before, a couple times before, because you're trying to talk or trying to move, and sometimes eventually you come out of it, and it's like someone just was sitting on your chest and just got off. It's a horrible feeling, but that's related to this fear right here.
Was she the real heavy girl you dated?
No, she wasn't heavy.
Couldn't move. She tied you down.
Yeah.
Come on, isn't this going to get a little bit more interesting?
Maybe
Tom?
Psychologically. The next one that we move on to is the fear of separation, or the fear of abandonment, rejection, or loss of connectedness. That's pretty nasty too.
Yeah, I agree. And then the top of the pyramid is death of the ego. And that includes humiliation, shame, integrity of self. If someone puts you down, death where you feel like you've actually lost who you are.
That's like when that girl told you had a small penis.
Hey, the water was freaking ice cold, dude. It was like a scared turtle.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Hey, man, that took me years and years to get over, but never had any complaints. And now it's like a gnarled tree root. As I've gotten older. Anyhow, I recognize children listen to this podcast, so let's keep it clean. And that's fine. Yeah.
Really, I didn't know kids would listen to this.
Yeah.
Poor little bastards.
Anyhow, fear, just like any other emotion, it's a tool, and we can use it to our advantage. And if you really think about it, fear is a means of our senses providing information to us, information that we can use to make decisions. And at the bottom of, the root of that decision is typically, fight or flight. Are you going to stand there and fight and take a stand and conquer, conquer whatever you're fearing, or are you going to run away? And, in some ways, fear, the way that you handle fear, it's a habit. Back when I was in college at the University of Florida, the Gainesville murders occurred at the last semester of school there. And that was really scary because if you're not familiar with the Gainesville murders, this serial killer was killing students at the university.
And he wasn't only killing students, he was like chopping off their heads and, pointing them and directing them in certain directions, right? Like, didn't he pose? He staged the murder scenes.
Yeah, he staged the murder scenes, and they said it was with like surgeon-like precision, where he would almost give them an autopsy and remove certain organs. I mean, it's a really sick individual. But it was my last semester in school, and like a lot of parents, my mom wanted me to come home, and I told her, I was like, no, I'm not coming home. I worked too hard to get here. I'm in my last semester. I've been really, fighting my way to get through school. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I felt like if I ran from fear, that I would always be running from fear. And I think that's really true. You can look at things, fear changes the way that you view the world, but it doesn't change the world materially speaking. There have always been good people as well as bad people out in the world. There has been evil, since mankind existed. That has not changed. Only your perception of that has changed when you're living in fear. So coming to grips with that and recognizing, the reality of whatever fear you're facing can help you get over that.
It's funny you mentioned how your mom wanted you to come home, and mothers can be very fearful. And I know both of our moms would always tell us, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Don't jump ramps. You're going to break your arm. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Don't go across these certain boundaries, or don't talk to strangers. Remember, we used to be afraid of white vans because my sister had told me that white vans had hippies, and if they caught you, they would smoke your ears. So every time we saw cars, of any kind of car, we'd be ducking down behind the bushes.
Little did we know that there were actual hippies in the van, but they were just going. But that's the stoner's favorite vegetable.
But it's still to this day. Sometimes when I talk to my mom, she'll be like, "Oh, I'm afraid my car, I just don't want anything else to happen to it, because she's had it break down a couple of times lately. But I'm like, Mom, it's okay. It's running. Why are you worried about it? And she'll sit and she'll watch the news, and my God, the news will just destroy you. It will rot your mind. It will make you think that the end of the world is coming, and you go on Facebook and you see all these things with ISIS and, Obama this and Democrats and Republicans and libertarians and, all the hate that we have in our society, and people are like with their keyboards and typing it out there. After a while, it weighs on you, man.
No, I totally agree. And it seems like the news is only talks about bad things, or and it skews the way you view the world.
Absolutely, and there's things to be afraid of. I mean, ISIS are causing a lot of problems. I mean, what they just did, overseas in France is horrific. But we can't stop living our lives. And Jennifer has a friend at work that her husband lives up in New York, and they were going to spend New Year's Eve in New York. Now she's like, "Oh, I'm too scared. I'm not going to go." And it's like you're depriving yourself of your freedom. That's what they want. That's what the terrorists want you to do. Is and Miami could be any worse. Who knows? Miami could be the next target. It's a big city, has a lot of possible targets. So we can't live our lives in fear, even though that we see this horrific stuff going on. We gotta continue and go about our business.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, that there is almost an art, I think, to determining danger. Danger is danger. That's something that will hurt you and could harm you or threaten you. Going to New York over New Year's, over a big holiday, you have to wonder. You say, I mean, you take a risk in anything that you do, but in some ways, I mean, I see what you're saying, and I agree, but I also somewhat see her point too. You can't live your life in fear. That's absolutely true. But is that danger real, or is it not? I guess if you have to take a chance, and
everything in life is taking a chance. Stepping outside of your house or staying in your house can,
Right.
Who knows? You're not gonna know if you're safe inside or outside. What if your house catches fire while you're sleeping because you left a dryer on? What if because you stay inside all the time and you never want to go out, you die of congestive heart disease?
Well, I mean, you have if your house catches on fire, you have smoke alarms and sensors in your house that hopefully wake you up. So I mean, that's a
I would be willing to bet that the majority of Americans do not have smoke detectors, and if they do, I bet they don't have fresh batteries, because once those things start dying, they start beeping, and half the times people won't have a spare 9 volts, so they'll take it out and it'll sit there and they'll forget about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, in where I live, I'm right there with you. I have the 9-volt batteries. I just haven't put them up there yet. But you're absolutely right. It's sitting there without a 9-volt battery because the beeping was driving us crazy. But it's hardwired, so if the electric goes out, the sensor's not going to work. So I agree with you. But
was it Modern Family when they the dad, he had put all the smoke detectors like in a plastic bag, in a garbage bag, and shoved them in the attic, and then like they started making the beeping like when they're dying, and no one could find out where that was coming from.
It's that's a good way to kind of minimize your risk, or to hedge your bets, to protect yourself. Does going to New York over New Year's, does that increase your risk of being impacted by a terrorist or not? I don't know if that.
I mean, there are threats. There is a terrorist watch, but when I was in the military, we had all kinds of threats all the time. We'd come back to the base and there'd be guys with machine guns there and with the mirrors checking under your car for bombs and stuff like that. And it's scary when you see that. It's like, oh shit, is there really something to worry about? But we can't live in fear. You have to be aware. Like when we talked about street smart, you have to be aware of your surroundings, but you can't live in fear.
this part really is about educating yourself. And no matter what your plans are, you should try to educate yourself and prepare yourself so that you don't get caught in a bad situation. Like when I was going to school during the Gainesville murders, I made sure I wasn't in dark places. I stayed away from the dark corners, and I checked the back seat of my car, and was very, very aware of my environment, what was going on. There are things you can do, I guess what we're saying is there are things that you can do to kind of minimize the risk, to help minimize the danger, help keep you safe. And you should be doing that regardless of, where you are or what you're doing. It's important to educate yourself, keep yourself safe.
Speaking of keeping yourself safe, I always talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because that's part of my life. And I have a clip here from Rickson Gracie, who is one of the greatest fighters of all time. He used to do a lot of the cage matches and the Vale Tudo matches where they challenged all comers of different martial arts. Before the UFC, before mixed martial arts was popular in America, this guy was doing it down in Brazil and Japan, and he was undefeated. But here's what he has to say about fear.
I believe intelligence and fear are very close together. Guys say, I'm not afraid of anything. He's stupid, he's silly for me. It's something that doesn't fit in my mentality. Don't be afraid. I'm afraid of everything.
So that's interesting. He's afraid of everything. And this is a guy that mano to mano would take out almost anyone, but he's afraid of everything. So it gets into our mind, and it's how we handle it, right, John? It's how you deal with fear, because there is no absence of fear unless you're Daredevil. We've already talked about that.
Yeah, I mean that's a TV show,
right? The comic book, and that doesn't
or a comic book
exist.
Fearlessness is delusional. You can. He's absolutely right in that it's stupid to not fear anything. I've been known to say that there's not much in life that I fear, and that's true. I mean, but as I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking of I'm not totally fearless. There are things that I am scared of, and you can let that control you and create walls or barriers for your life, or you can push against those walls and try to educate yourself and try to grow as a person from taking that challenge on by facing your fears and looking at them realistically. Now, if you have a wild dog in front of you that's growling and snarling, and that's dangerous, and that's a threat, and it's right to be fearful of that animal. But there's other situations to where you probably don't need to be so fearful, like relationships, or let me take that back. There are certainly people that you need to be fearful with a relationship.
Elena Baba would have been one of them.
Yes. Yeah.
And if for those people that don't know who that is, that's the woman that cut off her husband's pee-pee while he was sleeping because he was cheating on her.
So you could say penis earlier. Now you have to say pee-pee.
You said there's little kids that are listening to this.
It's okay to use.
Now he has a hard time going tinkle. I think they sewed it back on. Now his looks gnarled.
But
and he became a porn star after that.
Yeah, everyone wanted to see it. You might as well charge admission. So back before I met my wife, I was engaged to be married to the absolutely wrong woman, and she was very, she was physical and very aggressive, and it got close to the wedding, and I was like, I don't want to have to deal with this the rest of my life. She was not abusive towards me, but she had quite a temper, and always yelling and complaining and just, not the person I wanted to be with the rest of my life. And I called it off 2.5 weeks before. Now, it wasn't that I was necessarily fearful from of her. I guess as I was thinking thinking about it at the time, I didn't feel fear. But after I made that decision and called off the wedding, I remember staying over at my friend's house. He had an extra guest room, and I kind of stayed there for a while. And I remember having nightmares in the middle of the night, just waking up in cold sweat because I was having a nightmare that she snuck into my room and was holding a knife to my throat. That doesn't scare the heck out of you. I don't know what does. But I had to calm myself, and the way I calmed myself by saying, you know what, she doesn't even know where I am. How could she do that? And chances are, yeah, she's crazy, but she's not that crazy, and I don't see her killing people. So I had to come to terms with that.
So what you were just mentioning there is a technique. What you just did. What are some other techniques that people can use to try to combat that fear? Because a big part of fear is just what's going on in our head every day. And right. What's, it's, like you said, fear originally starts from, survival, trying to survive. But we don't have to worry so much about survival now. We're pretty, we got creature comforts and, our food and safety and shelter are taken care of. What does a person do now they have all those fears, and now they're attributing it to fear of losing their job or fear of, not wearing the correct clothes or saying the right thing, or fear that, someone might not like them. What do they do? How do they overcome those fears?
Well, I mean, there's many different ways you can reframe your fear. And what I mean by that is by thinking about it in a different way, in a different light, kind of take a step back from the situation, because oftentimes we get so close to a situation that we don't see anything else. It's like you can't see the forest through the trees. You got to take a step back and kind of reevaluate things. Back when I lost my job, when my position was eliminated, I'll tell you the truth. I mean, I was scared. I was fearful that I wouldn't be able to provide for my family. And what that did is it changed the way I viewed things. And instead of just looking in the Richmond area, I started looking outside of the Richmond area. I thought, you know what, if we have to move, we'll move. I'm going to go where the money's at. And, I'm going to, if I have to work at McDonald's or deliver pizza or, dig ditches, I'll do whatever I have to do to provide for my family. And once I started changing my mindset, I mean, great things started to happen for me. It ended up that I had a better paying job working at home, 2 months down the road. So you can reframe it. You can take a step back. Also realize too that you're not alone in this. We are all social creatures, and if something bad has happened to you or you're fearful of something, then recognize that chances are it has probably happened to somebody else as well. Several years back, my wife had a miscarriage, and I was over that. But as I was talking to other people, I realized how common that was, and how so many people that I knew had gone through that themselves. And it really made me feel a lot better, because I didn't feel so alone. And I recognized, that only happens when nature it's nature's way of stopping something from happening that could be much worse. It may have been much worse had the baby gone to term, and it's nature's way of solving that problem. So, all right.
What about techniques, as far as sometimes we know, even though that it's our mindset, but it's not so easy to change your mind. Is there something physical that someone could do that would instantly kind of let them step back a level? or take it down a notch. You know, if they get that tightness in their chest and they're like, you know, nerves are all shot and they're tense and they're, you know, clenching their jaw.
They say that, I don't know if this is what you're getting at necessarily, but anxiety and worry, the physical side of that, the physiological side of that, is very close to what the body goes through when you're excited. So one way that you could do that, if you're anxious about something, is to start telling yourself that you're excited about it. Like, say, for instance, you're about ready to speak in public. I mean, man, I remember when I was like 12 or 13 years old, trying out for the Little League team. You know, I kind of started late. My dad didn't really play a lot of baseball with me. I kind of taught myself. I read books about baseball. I mean, what a nerd, you know, reading a book. I'm going to learn how to play baseball. I'm going to read a book about it. Well, you know, but it didn't stop me. And I went out to try out. And I remember the coach asking me my name. I was so nervous. I couldn't even talk. I mean, I was so paralyzed by fear. And I hated that feeling. And I think that's probably real. I think I realized after that I needed to, you know, I needed to do things to kind of push the boundaries of my fear and grow as a person. And
can I say something right there about baseball? And since we're talking about fear, you know, I hate baseball. I really do. And you know why? It stems back to that same time when I was a kid, because I went through that same thing where I was collecting baseball cards and I wanted to play. And I signed up in school, and I remember the first instance is I was supposed to start off with T-ball, you know, because I didn't know anything about baseball. Well, they stuck me with the older kids that already knew how to play. I don't know why they screwed up, but instead of like rescheduling me and putting me on T-ball, they put me with the bigger kids. So the first thing the coach does, he throws the ball up in the air for me to catch. I lose it in the sun, and bam, the ball hits me right in the nose, and you know, I'm crying, and I'm like, I don't like this sport. And then the second thing is, I don't know if you remember this, but we were with this kid Mitchell Fleet, and we were in front of your house. And I'm sure you probably actually do. And Mitchell decides that he has these bullets he found from his dad, right? So he decides there's a car driving by, and just out of the blue, he throws it at the car and hits the car, and the guy slams on the brake and chases us all, and you guys all go scattered in different directions, and I'm the only one left there, and the guy comes running after me, and I'm running around a tree in your house, in your front yard, screaming my head off, because all I'm thinking is this guy's going to kidnap me, you know, and your mom finally comes out and is like, what are you doing? And the guy has grabbed me by the wrist and is trying to pull me to his car, and I'm like freaking out. You know, I'm probably 6 or 7 years old.
You dropped your Slurpee, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't have it at the time. But yeah, so I was scared to death. And the guy turned out that, you know, it wasn't me that threw the bullet. It was Mitchell. But, you know, your mom came out, everything, you know, straightened it out. And then later on, the guy called my house. You know, your mom must have given him my number to apologize. And he happened to be a baseball coach, and he wanted to know if I wanted to be on his team. And I was like, no way. I want to be on that psycho's team. I think it ruined me for baseball.
He wanted to bean you with that ball.
Yeah, so the fear ruined me for baseball. Now I have no interest in it now.
My brother-in-law used to play baseball. In fact, he was really good at it. Played all of his life basically, and that tradition's carried on to my nephew, who's now playing for Princeton. But I did not get that. And I remember going with my sister to watch my brother-in-law play, and this guy was up to bat, and he got beamed right in the nuts, and he went down on the ground, and he was just writhing in pain. And I mean, like, you know, screaming. And I'm like, I don't remember how old I was, but I still remember that scene so vividly. And every time I went up to bat, I thought about that poor guy. There was no way you can bat under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, that's fear.
Yeah, definitely fear. So, you know, I made a choice to kind of give that up. I tried playing baseball for a couple of years, and I played, you know, left bench, and I was terrible at it. Like you know, I kind of got a late start at it, and my dad didn't really teach me how to play. So, you know, I decided to kind of move on and do other things. But you have to recognize that's a choice that you make. You make a choice when you live with fear. I made a choice. Well, I'm going to not play baseball, and that's okay. It's okay to fear things and not want to do them, but recognize that you're not going to grow in that if you make that choice. Go ahead.
What I was trying to get you to answer before is I was trying to look for a physical way to combat fear, and one of them, which we've talked about, is meditation or breathing. That's what I was trying to point you to. So,
yeah, you can do count. You talking about counting breath?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah, and that's really just focusing on your breath, counting each breath, and as soon as you kind of lose your train of thought, you start back at zero. You count back.
When
that's a good way to.
Before I started doing jiu-jitsu, back probably when I started when I was like 16, doing a martial art called Wing Chun, and it's a style of kung fu, but it's what they call an internal style, even though it was very external. There's in kung fu, there's internal styles and external. External is the hard kicking, punching, you're the fastest, strongest, quickest, most skilled man wins. And internal arts, it's soft, but then there's points of hardness. They use the relaxation to increase their speed. So it's not that they're wimpy or that they're soft where they can't fight. They just have a different way. They'll take the opponent's force and use it against them. So we would always start our classes with meditating and all the forms you would learn how to meditate. And if there's something that you want to do to help calm your nerves, one thing is you breathe from your belly. You don't breathe in your lungs, because if you breathe up in your chest is very shallow. You have to breathe like a little baby and breathe that with your belly. And besides that, what we used to do is we touched the tip of our tongue on the roof of our mouth. And it's supposed to be for chi, but it also helps keep your mouth, I guess, moist while you're breathing in and out. And what you do is you breathe in through your nose. And if you breathe in, say it's 7 seconds in through your nose, you breathe out through your mouth like 12 seconds or 14 seconds. You double it. So, and if you do that technique, it will start, you'll feel the tension in your body to start to go away. And it's hard not to be tense. It's really, really hard. It's hard not to think about anything either, because you start thinking about your breath, and in Chinese culture, they don't want you to think about anything. And they said that eventually your mind will become like a water bucket that the bottom just kind of falls out of and the water pours out. That's how you want to be. But it's very difficult to attain. I mean, masters that do it for their lifetime still have difficulty doing that, because we have almost like a movie playing in our head. But the thing is, I have a movie, John has a movie, but they're different movies. And what happens, we end up playing the same bad clips over and over, the things that we're afraid of. When I was a kid, getting hit in the nose with a baseball bat. I mean, with a baseball, probably got hit with a bat too. But, so those things replay in your mind. So then when I go to school and I'm playing something else, or I was in the Air Force, and I was almost forced to, we had to play softball, because we're on alert, so I'm with my airplane, and we would have downtime at these bunkers, and, all the, senior officers and sergeants would want to play softball. And I was like, I suck at baseball. Here I am. I feel like I'm in high school or middle school again, going out and having to go dress out for PE. So, but that fear was still with me even as an adult. But meditation can help you, and it's one thing that's very helpful. I used to also, just real quick, and this is not, I haven't seen if anyone else does, but if I was in my car, I would like chant, almost like those monks. That the way you use your diaphragm, it just lets it out, and it gets that tension out of you.
Yeah, you can also try to turn your fears into some type of positive affirmation. Like for instance, if you're scared of speaking in public, you could start telling yourself that speaking in public empowers you. And, getting over a fear or or challenging yourself with fear is a good way to grow. And the way I used to do it when I was doing public speaking is I would just keep telling myself, okay, I'm cool, calm, and collected. And I just keep repeating that over and over and over. You can figure out ways for yourself to try to leverage fear to your advantage. Fear does have its positive aspects. If you're a student and you fear that you're going to do poorly on your test, that may push you to study more. It may help you. It may push you to prepare before the test so that you're ready to go when you take that test. It can help focus you, and we all have different ways of doing that. But fear is just not a negative thing. Remember, it's fight or flight. So that's a choice you make. You can either choose to run or you can choose to fight. And recognize this too. There's a psychological term called potentiation. And it basically means that the more scared you feel, the scarier things will seem. Like, for instance, the horrific acts in Paris. People are scared over that. And it makes the world seem a lot more scary than it really is. Like we said earlier, there's always been good and bad in this world. And that didn't change with Paris. There's still good and bad in this world, but we seem to kind of overlook the good when there's so much seems to be so much bad happening. I have a great story that back when I was in college, about 20 of us went to the movie theaters to watch a scary movie. The movie was called Wolfen, and it was about a werewolf. So we had so many people. We were in 2 rows. We took up 2 rows of the movie, of the theater. And my friend, I'm gonna call him out by name, but my friend Frankie was out in front, and my friend Steve was sitting next to me. And right as the music was getting, the scary music was coming on, you were preparing to see someone else get attacked. My friend Steve reached out and grabbed Frankie's shoulder, and it scared the crap out of Frankie. Frankie not only yelled and screamed, but he jumped up out of his chair. He was so freaked out when he got grabbed at that moment. But that wasn't the funny part. That was funny enough. But what's even funnier is that it had a chain reaction throughout the theater where you heard, it was almost like a domino effect. It was like, all throughout the theater.
You shouldn't laugh, because I remember when we were kids of you crying and going home. We were watching Creature Feature, and a gigantic spider came on the TV, and you was like, I never saw you cry. I think that was the first time I saw you cry ever. You were like, and you were like freaking out. My mom was trying to calm you down, and finally, I think you went home. Because
what? And when I walked home, I ran home because I was so scared that the spiders were going to come out from behind the houses. Yeah, I've come a long way.
Hey, but listen, you know what I'm afraid of? Dolls. When I was a kid, my mom left me at my grandfather's house watching The Outer Limits, and there was this episode where this one doll was pushing all these other dolls off the shelf, and they were breaking, and this old man finally tried to bring the doll down or something, and the doll bit him, and it was had some kind of poison or something, and I think he died. But my mom used to have this doll, and I know you'll remember this. It was in a glass case in the corner of my living room, and it had glass eyes, and it was this Victorian doll that was it's probably worth thousands of dollars. But that thing, I swear, whenever you moved, it looked like the eyes were following you. So at nighttime, when I used to go to the kitchen, I used to have to go through the living room in order to get to the kitchen. I would run because I was scared of that damn doll if the lights were out. And to this day, my wife has a doll named Baby Chrissy, and the thing looks like Chucky. Has red hair, and it's all messed up because you're supposed to cut its hair, and she cut her hair. And Logan, my daughter, will take the thing and hang it by its feet and hang it on my pull-up bar or hide it underneath my pillow.
It's like the elf on the shelf.
Yeah, I hate dolls. I hate dolls.
It's, since we're talking about fear, do you remember back when we were, I don't know how old we were teenagers. And I know I said I was 13 when I was trying out for Little League. I think I was probably much younger at that age, but Halloween was a really big deal for us as a kid. That was we had certain boundaries to play in because our parents didn't want us crossing like the busy roads. But Halloween, our boundaries got expanded. And we got to go trick-or-treating over a larger area. And Tom and I always went trick-or-treating together. And this one Halloween, we saw these older kids kind of stash eggs into this bush. And we went, and, you wouldn't want to carry around eggs if you're egging houses. You want to keep a stash of them. So that's what the older kids were doing. And we saw them do that. And we took their eggs, and we spent the rest of the night being chased by those kids.
I remember that.
And I remember being like hiding in a bush. Like it was like something out of a movie where you're trying to get home, where the heroes are trying to get home. And we're just trying to get home.
I know this. I know the movie Judgment Night. The guys break down in a bad neighborhood. Dennis Leary's the leader of this gang, and they're like, these guys witness Dennis Leary and his gang murder someone. So then, of course, they have to catch them and murder them too because they're eyewitnesses, and they're through the bad neighborhood, and they got all these heavy metal and Ice-T rock songs and rap songs going on, and it was just. I took my wife to it; she hated it, but I loved it.
It's what's so funny is I was thinking back about that time. I don't know if I don't think we egged anybody's houses with them. I know that we took the eggs, but I don't think we did anything. Bad
shaving cream was my thing.
Shaving cream
I used to I used to take edge, and you could rig it so it could shoot like 20 feet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was great. But we weren't really that destructive when we were young. But I remember kicking those kids' eggs, and then just like hiding in bushes, and these kids were walking by us, going, "Where the hell are those kids?" And we were just shaking in our shoes.
So let me ask you, if you had something that was the opposite of fear, what would you say is the opposite as far as emotions that counteracts fear?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'd go back to, excitement. It's physically, it's the same. I mean, our body reacts, but the way we handle it mentally is just the opposite. I mean, when you're excited about something, it empowers you. When you're fearful, it takes your power away.
You also think of like courage, but courage is not the absence of fear. That's actually stepping up in the presence of fear. Confidence is a kind of the opposite of fear. Some of the things that counteract it, I think, are love. Love is a powerful emotion, and people think of it sappy, but love does conquer fear.
Yeah, I think knowledge conquers fear as well.
Yes.
Fear is often due to uncertainty, or just plain ignorance, not knowing something. And if you can educate yourself, you will be less fearful about something. Although I have to say that when my dad was diagnosed with ALS, I started doing a lot of research on ALS, and that did not make me less scared. That made me a hell of a lot more scared. I think knowing what my father was up against was not fun. They say that there's no such thing as bravery, only degrees of fear. I think that's a good.
Okay,
good way
well,
to think
here's one that I think a lot of our listeners, and this doesn't matter if you're Christian or Jewish or Muslim or whatever you believe in or don't believe in, but faith. Whether it's the faith in a higher power or faith in your own abilities or faith that things are just going to work out or the universe is going to come around or karma. A popular, I wrote this down, which everyone should recognize this, whether you're a Christian or not, because you've probably heard it in movies, is Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And one of the things, the premises of God is that he or she or whatever God is supposed to take on your burdens. The fear is not for us. If you're fearing, you're taken away from God's power. God takes care of us, so usually you don't have to worry and fear. And there's lots of places in the Bible that it speaks about that.
It's I always saw a different version of that Psalm, and it's because I'm the baddest son of a bitch out there.
Also in Lost, didn't Mr. Eco didn't he used to recite that? The big guy with the stick.
I know you're gonna kill me. I haven't watched it.
You haven't watched Lost either? He hasn't watched Star Wars or Lost, man.
I have seen.
I'm so disappointed.
I've seen Star Wars.
Oh, and what's
I continue to disappoint.
I have something. This is the best quote about fear, and this is from a very wise individual. Fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. And I sense much fear in you. That's Master Yoda. It's a Jedi, John.
Okay.
Get with the program.
Moving this conversation away from Star Wars and from TV shows that I haven't watched, you totally derailed my line of thinking here.
I would have talked like a Muppet, but I'm just not. It's not me.
I do believe in a higher being, and I think that faith is important. But I also think, regardless of how you view the world, some things may not be meant to be. And sometimes it is what it is. And to me, that attitude has carried me a lot of the time. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and it's going to happen. And if it's not meant to be, and it doesn't happen, that's okay too. It's it's coming to terms and recognize, whether no matter your religious beliefs, we all understand that some things are outside of our control, and there are things within our control and things outside of our control. And the things outside of our control, we have to just let go. And only focus on the things that we can control. I was thinking about my dad a lot, and when he was losing, his ability to eat and drink food, and he had a feeding tube, and his physical strength was deteriorating, and life was hell. I think that really showed me his true person. And my dad was an amazing, courageous man. And I remember him saying, John, I can't focus on what I can't do anymore, or things that I've lost, or, even where my life is heading. He says, I need to just focus on what I can do, and I can still do a lot. And, I think that says a lot. Oftentimes we spend a lot of time thinking about things that we've lost or we regret, and we get caught up in that cycle of, it holds us back. And there's nothing we can do to change those things. All we can do is focus on what we can do next. And we can all still do a lot.
Words of wisdom. And what I fear is that this episode is getting too long. So I think it's time for us to wrap up our show. Hey, there's something really cool, John, is normally we ask people to go to our website and opt in for a free book or something else, another free gift. What we've used to have, we had a spending tool, and we had a book that you wrote that was very good. But we have all these other things that we want to give you, action guides. And so we've come up with the idea of a membership vault, and it's free. All you have to do is go to our website, swiftkickinass.com, press the little button, and when you'll take into what looks like an order form. There's going to be credit cards and PayPal. Ignore that. That's just you don't have to enter any information about money. It's 100% free. All you need to do is put your name and your email, and we'll send you login information. Check your spam in your trash bin, because it might go to the trash bin. It's just what happens with our membership hosting company. But it's got a full-fledged membership with courses, videos, ebooks, and action guides, and we're going to continually add stuff into this. This is something really cool that no one else is doing, and we want to present that to you.
Yeah, definitely check that out, and can't wait till the next time. Be sure to send us your comments. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Be brave about it.
Peace.
Peace.